The announcement echoed through the hallways, startling the students from their mid-morning routines. Attention all students and staff, we are now under lockdown. This is not a drill. The voice, usually calm and collected, was laced with fear. Room 204, Miss Taylor's history class, fell silent. Students exchanged worried glances, their eyes reflecting the same question. What is happening? Miss Taylor quickly closed the blinds and locked the door, her movements swift and practiced, but her hands trembled slightly. Everyone, stay calm and move to the corner of the room, away from the door and windows, she instructed. The students complied, huddling together, their whispers blending into a murmur of anxiety. Liam, a senior who usually sat at the back of the class, peered out from under his bangs. "Do you think it's a shooter?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Don't even say that," hissed Emily, the class president. "It could be anything." Miss Taylor tried to maintain her composure as she grabbed her phone. She dialed the front office, but the line was busy. A sense of dread settled in her stomach. She sent a quick text to her husband, letting him know about the lockdown, then focused on keeping her students safe. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from the hallway. The class collectively held their breath. Miss Taylor motioned for silence, her eyes scanning the room to ensure everyone was accounted for. The minutes dragged by, each one feeling like an eternity. The only sound was the ticking of the classroom clock, a constant reminder of the passing time. Just when the tension seemed unbearable, the doorknob rattled. Every head turned towards the door. Miss Taylor motioned for everyone to stay quiet. The rattling stopped, but was replaced by a series of heavy footsteps. They came closer and closer until they were right outside the classroom. Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the fear radiating from his classmates. He wished he could do something, anything, to protect them. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then the door shook violently. Someone or something was trying to get in. The students pressed closer together, some of them stifling sobs. Miss Taylor grabbed a heavy textbook, ready to defend her students if necessary. The door held, but the handle continued to rattle. After what felt like an eternity, the noise stopped. The footsteps retreated down the hall, growing fainter until they disappeared altogether. The class remained silent, too afraid to move or speak. Miss Taylor exhaled slowly, trying to steady her nerves. She glanced at the clock. It had only been 15 minutes since the lockdown began, but it felt like hours. She decided to check her phone for any updates, but there was no new information. Outside, the school was eerily quiet. The usual sounds of bustling students and teachers were replaced by an unsettling stillness. Miss Taylor prayed that the lockdown would end soon and that everyone would be safe. Just as she was beginning to feel a glimmer of hope, there was another loud bang, this time from the direction of the main entrance. The noise was followed by a series of rapid, sharp sounds that could only be gunfire. Panic surged through the room. Several students began to cry openly, and Miss Taylor struggled to maintain control. "Stay quiet and stay down," she whispered urgently. "We need to stay hidden." The gunfire continued sporadically, echoing through the hallways. Each shot sent a jolt of fear through the students. Miss Taylor's mind raced as she tried to think of a way to keep them safe. She knew that they couldn't stay in the classroom forever. As the minutes ticked by, the gunfire grew less frequent, eventually ceasing altogether. Miss Taylor listened intently, trying to determine if the danger had passed. The silence was oppressive, but she couldn't afford to take any chances. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from the school administration, informing her that the police were on their way and advising everyone to remain in lockdown until further notice. Relief washed over her, but she knew they were not out of danger yet. The class waited in tense silence, every sound amplified in the quiet room. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they heard the distant wail of sirens. The police had arrived. Miss Taylor's phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from the police, instructing all teachers to keep their doors locked and to only open them for officers in uniform. She relayed the information to her students, who nodded nervously. The next few minutes were agonizing. The students clung to each other, their fear palpable. Miss Taylor did her best to reassure them, but her own anxiety was difficult to hide. Finally, they heard footsteps approaching, accompanied by the sound of a police radio. Miss Taylor peered through the blinds and saw a group of officers making their way down the hallway. She let out a sigh of relief and unlocked the door. The officers entered the room, their expressions serious but reassuring. "Everyone, stay calm," one of them said. "We're here to get you to safety." The students slowly stood up, their faces pale but determined. The officers led them out of the classroom and down the hallway, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Miss Taylor stayed close to her students, her heart pounding in her chest. As they exited the building, the magnitude of the situation became clear. The school grounds were swarming with police, and ambulances lined the street. The students were escorted to a safe area where they were reunited with their anxious parents. Miss Taylor watched as her students hugged their families, tears of relief streaming down their faces. She felt a surge of pride for their bravery in the face of such terror. She hoped that they would be able to heal from the trauma they had experienced. In the days that followed, the details of the lockdown began to emerge. The gunman had been a former student, troubled and seeking revenge for perceived wrongs. He had been apprehended by the police before he could cause further harm. The community rallied together to support the students and staff, offering counseling and resources to help them cope. Miss Taylor knew that it would take time for everyone to recover, but she was determined to help her students move forward. The lockdown had been a nightmare, but it had also shown the strength and resilience of the students and staff. Miss Taylor vowed to never forget the lessons they had learned that day and to always be prepared to protect her students, no matter the cost. As the schools slowly returned to normal, Miss Taylor found herself reflecting on the experience. It had been terrifying, but it had also brought out the best in people. She was grateful for the bravery and support of her students and colleagues, and she knew that together they could face anything. The lockdown would forever be etched in their memories, a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of community. But it was also a testament to their strength and resilience, and a promise that they would always stand together, no matter what challenges lay ahead.